have lived beyond my time. Another new moon in 1,000 years of new moons. And I do not care to see it. Underworld was a big stretch for me and sort of a test to see if I could do it. And certainly wasn't expecting to be finding myself doing, number 5 in a franchise.
This was a chance we took with Len Weissman, who created the character in the story. And it's nice to see something that you created grow up and have the longevity that this one has.
It's great to have Kate back for the 4th time in Underworld 5. One of the themes that runs through all of the Underworld movies is the character of Celine and what she has lost. Celine was originally a human who lost her family first.
There, my child. You are safe now.
And she later discovers that it was Victor who actually killed them, and he turned her into a vampire and into the most capable of death dealers.
It wasn't the Lycans.
Then she fell in love with Michael Corvin, who was a descendant of the original Bloodstrain, and she lost Michael at the end of Underworld 2.
The worlds have changed quite a lot for each movie. It's always interesting to come back and play a character that you played before. One of the things I like about the franchise is that, yes, she's very tough and she finds incredibly inventive and fairly sick ways of killing monsters and all of that. But through every single movie, her motivations: love for her family, love for Victor, love for Michael, for her daughter.
He does not want my help.
I know you want to protect her. And if we destroy Marius, we destroy the greatest threat to her safety.
This is a character who has a lot of emotional scars. And it's something that makes her character far more interesting than normal genre characters.
She starts as somebody who has lost everything. So Celine's journey in this story is probably more complex and more layered than we have seen before, because she does start in a very vulnerable state and she doesn't see really a purpose of living.
She starts out the movie basically on the run from everybody. Selina's really as close to suicidal as a vampire can get. I find Celine such a tragic character, really. She just wants to kind of love someone and have them not betray her.
I have seen so much war, so much killing. I cannot bear more.
The peace you will feel here is real.
Essentially, she realizes that her blood and the blood of her daughter would be basically ending their world if it comes into the wrong hands.
When we have the blood of the hybrid girl, we will be invincible.
And that gives her a new and very strong reason to fight again. For Celine to find that journey or that arc from somebody who doesn't want to be that warrior anymore, when she starts this movie, to somebody that is now going to a place where people live in peace, she dies and comes back enlightened, and she comes back with a wisdom she didn't have before. Celine is really reborn as a different person. A new Celine. What was really amazing is to explore the new facets of Celine in that new story, because she's clearly evolving.
We go, ready, and action.
It was really amazing to collaborate with Kate and come up with those new facets, and she was very open to ideas, and it was a great collaboration.
Thank you, gang. Pictures up.
It was good to be working with Kate again because she knows the character so well and she peppers it with fun.
Kate, of course, leaps and jumps around and does all her own stunts and stuff, and she's a very, very talented woman. She's elevated this franchise.
And action.
Kate's been doing this a long time. She shows up, she does it great, she does it perfectly, and then we move on.
I really was lucky to work with her and also just learn off her as well, because she's such a phenomenal actress.
I think she brings an incredible amount of grace to the character of Celine. So it's really fun engaging with her as myself, but then also as Alexia.
One of the things that gets tricky about bringing a character back, you know, more than once or twice is that obviously you want to feel that there's a real justification emotionally for that.
Kate knows every single bit about Celine because Celine was born with her, basically. I mean, she has played her for so many times. So working with her is an incredible asset. I think Kate is probably one of the most intelligent and most brilliant women I've worked with.
I think women and men like to see women kicking ass, taking names, but I also think Celine does go through so much kind of emotional stuff during the movie, and that was really appealing to Anna.
You killed Michael.
I think it's a tragic character, and I don't think there will be ever a happy ending, but I think if there's an ending that evokes hope, then that's a pretty big thing for Underworld.
Well, the way we leave Underworld 5, and this was something that was in the early screenplays and it was hotly debated whether to keep it in or not. Anna Forrester always loved it. I always loved it. Celine has found a spiritual calling a little bit at the end.
My journey has now come full circle. Once an outcast, I am now one of 3 chosen elders, from hunted to the highest honor.
This is a long journey from somebody not liking where they are right now, not wanting to be the warrior, the killer, pursuing that war.
I'm finished with this war. Well, it's not finished with you.
Somebody who has almost given up because everything is gone.
I am reborn, and my eyes have been opened to the sacred world and to the promise of what is yet to be.
There's a great shot of her in sort of a monastic or Buddhist pose at the end, and you really feel that she has found some peace in her life after, you know, these years of struggle.
It's open-ended. She's with the Northern Coven. She has survived the Lycan attack, then the treachery from her vampire elders.
If you choose to look at it as her last movie, it is a great image to take away and feel that you've completed her saga in Underworld. On the other hand, the Nordic Coven could be a coven that she would be a great leader in.
Each time we've done an Underworld film, we assumed that that was going to be the end of it. I'm not even sure what Underworld 6 would be, but who knows what the future holds for us. It's not out of the question. The Nordic Coven is a whole new concept in Underworld 5.
We wanted to take the story to a new coven.
The Eastern Coven and the Northern Coven are really opposites.
It was very interesting going back to a world where you've already explored, but reintroducing yourself to a whole bunch of new characters and a whole new concept.
Follow me. These characters are so enticing, and it really transports you to another world.
When you find David and Thomas again, they're trying to find safe passage, essentially, and they've gone to the east.
'Tis said that the Western Coven was utterly destroyed.
Yes, it was.
It's a blessing you escaped with your life.
Well, many did not.
Charles played a significant role in Underworld 4, and it's wonderful to have him back. When you watch the dailies or you watch scenes that he's in, you realize why he's been a leading man for 40 years.
I think Thomas, he's a well-respected elder, father of David, a father figure in the coven, really.
I lost so much during this war. And believe me, I am haunted still by all those I failed.
And we learn a little about an episode in his past.
You were very fond of Emilia, if I remember.
You must go north, far north, Vardor.
David is more the reluctant hero because he, as somebody who really usually turned his back to coven and responsibility in a way.
Do you know who this is?
Yes. But it was we who betrayed her, Father. David, he's a less traditional vampire. He doesn't believe in some of the old ways.
Father and son united in treason.
He's also a bit of a rebel, and through the film, he kind of discovers a little bit more about his origins and where he came from, and thus what he has to lose.
His father sends him to the north, not only to find sanctuary for Celine, but as well to find answers.
David.
For David to realize suddenly that he is actually the son of an elder makes him the rightful heir to the Eastern Coven, which gives him the responsibility to protect and lead.
Thomas knew that one day he would be beset by enemies on both sides, and he was right.
I think the Northern Coven, and Vidar being the leader of them, just decided they want to live in a peaceful way. They want to remove themselves from the war.
We come seeking sanctuary, not to fight.
And you've come to the right place.
I picture Vidar like a guy that once was a bit of a warrior, but now he has sort of retired to this kingdom of his, and he's living in peace with his daughter Lena and his people, the northern vampires, who are of the friendly sort.
Our coven doesn't receive many guests by design. We do as we wish, not as others would have us do.
And what of the lichens?
We are too far removed for them to take notice, and even if they did, our climate is quite an obstacle to warm bloods.
There is a strong difference between the Eastern and the Nordic Coven, not only aesthetically, but actually the energy that you get from both of the places. And the Nordic has this more tranquil feel about it. There's not fighting and violence. It's a lot more to do with sort of the studies of their tradition and deepening their knowledge.
This has been a coven that's been living almost autonomously for hundreds and hundreds of years. It's never had anything to do with the war on the lichens. And as a result, they've become sort of ascetic, monk-like in their practices.
Come.
What is this?
Valisa, the in-between place.
Is she dead?
No. She took a poison which allows her to visit the sacred world.
Lena is something like a seer, and this whole other world is kind of a bit of a mystery, and Lena tells us she's traveled back and forth.
Lena, I think, has this ability to be actually quite connected to people and accepting, and I'm very fortunate in the sense that I get to really explore the spiritual elements, which touches some of the other characters as well along the way.
I wanted to have the Northern Coven have their own language, and I didn't want to just make something up, so we found the language of Sami, which is very north of Lapland. There's only very few people that still speak that original language. So there is this mystery of, okay, this is another world in another language as well.
Praise the life that has lived.
War has followed you here.
Protect your own.
There seems to be an unlimited amount of mileage in anything to do with vampires. It just goes on and on and on, rather like the creatures themselves. It's nice to do a bit of swashbuckling, especially at my age, and it was great fun to do.
I was 7 weeks out of drama school and I had the audition. I feel very lucky that this is my first ever job, so let alone my first ever film. They have such a great legacy of fantastic British actors, so I just was really excited that I was able to sort of be a part of the next generation.
Lichens are not the superior breed that we vampires are. They're scruffy, and they make a lot of mess, and they have to be dealt with in short order.
Lichens function really well as a pack, whereas vampires work well as solitary creatures. But ultimately, they're the same. They want to come out on top. It's survival of the fittest.
A huge aspect of vampire coven life is intrigue, and in this one even clearer than before. There are like several people that have their own agenda.
We are losing the war, Thomas. If we stay as we are, our species will be extinct within 5 years. The Eastern Coven is under threat, and we as a species need all the help that we can get.
The Eastern Coven is perhaps a little bit arrogant in its ways. It's done a pretty good job of fending off Lycan attacks for however many years. And with that, I think, grows a certain level of hubris.
No Lycan pack would dare to attack our coven. Our defenses would rip them apart.
Cassius, he's the leader of the council, and James brought a gravitas to that, which was really fantastic.
Cassius was of the old school, and as leader of the council, he's responsible not just for the history of the coven, but also for its discipline. And he feels that Selene in the past has transgressed too much to be allowed safe passage.
You need Selene. Her prowess, her leadership, her intimate knowledge of Lycans. And her combat skills are second to none.
He's right, she is the most lethal death dealer we've ever had.
She killed one of her own. I acknowledge her skills, but I don't trust the woman. I don't think Cassius trusts any women, curiously. He's not keen on the daughters of Eve, Cassius. I will hold you, Samira, personally responsible for controlling her.
Of course.
Samira is just as dangerous, but subtler.
Samira is a chameleon and has an endless thirst for power, depending on who she's around. She transforms and manipulates a situation to her advantage.
She's like an incredible chess player.
Do you honestly think I would forgive you for killing Victor? Anna just has the most extraordinary energy. Her eyes would always light up when she would talk about Samira, because she just knew how much fun we could have. That, my sweet, yet unimaginative bedfellow, is my area of expertise.
I think you should...
Don't think, Fargo, you'll hurt yourself.
Bradley plays a character who is sort of under the thumb of Samira, but he also has enmity and resentment towards Samira.
Varga has very much a militant station within the Coven. There's many a death dealer in the Coven, and Varga tells them what to do. I think he is a relatively responsible leader in that regard. I say that, he murders a bunch of cadets. But it's for the greater good.
Alexia represents the sort of new wave and young blood, and with her youth, she's quite headstrong. She becomes a little bit vulnerable. She represents changing times and the new way of approaching things.
She is betraying the vampires.
Have you found Selene?
Yes, she is headed for the Nordic Coven.
So she has to play the role two different ways. Daisy was able to bring both the vulnerability and also the severity that you need for that role.
I risk everything for this. For you. For us.
I know, my love.
With Marius, Selene is facing probably her most fierce opponent yet.
Marius is a more political, more disciplined foe than maybe the vampires have experienced.
Are you a slave? No, then don't behave like one.
He is planning and he's organizing and he is basically plotting in a way we haven't seen Lycans work like that.
He is attempting to instill greater discipline, greater strategic thinking into the sort of Lycan mentality. To be totally honest, I quite like a baddie, a villain. I think they often can be quite rewarding and rich people to play, because in a way the challenge is to make them multifaceted and more than just a person doing bad stuff.
Your leader is dead! Take your wounded. Leave.
It's a delight to play a vampire, and a particularly difficult vampire.
What is the meaning of this?
Who is willing to bare his teeth and hiss at anybody.
It's been fun, exhilarating, scary.
There's a lot of new characters, a lot of younger actors.
It's been wonderful to kind of come and join the family.
You can feel Anna kind of pushing the bounds of that genre and trying to sort of reinvent it and make it something fresh.
It's damn good entertainment, you know, and very, very stylish.
I just think It's everyone's dress-up dream. There's swords, there's guns, there's a lot of leather and fangs.
Long may it continue.
There is a very, very strong mythology in Underworld, so I think it would be a mistake to go in and say, okay, we do everything different now. So the approach was to take all those things that I thought were exciting and then build on top.
Underworld 5 is really more of a throwback to the original, the set design, the costumes, everything. But we're also looking at this as being something fresh and new.
The decision to hire Anna Forrester was really the best decision we made on all of Underworld 5. She was a cinematographer. She had a visual effects background and a second unit background on big movies.
She really understands action, understands the camera and special effects. It's a rare combination.
And cut, let's reset.
She's been able to breathe new life into the franchise in a way that I don't think anybody else would have been able to do it.
And 3, 2, 1, go!
Working with Anna really pushed us to elevate our game and bring the franchise up a notch.
Having James McQuaid on my side for this was amazing because obviously he has the whole history of Underworld with him.
There's roughly 650 visual effect shots in the picture. We have hundreds of Lycans transforming at the same time. We have big battle sequence at the end with 50 Nordic vampires and 100 Lycans. So there's a scale to the effects here that is much higher than we had on any of the other 4 pictures.
What are you?
In the case of Marius, he had to look like the actor. He was a hybrid. He wasn't a full Lycan. So it was the first time we actually did a creature that actually looked like a human being.
We really want to feel the human or the Lycan behind it. And we started scanning Tobias Menzies, and it took quite a while, but I think we actually succeeded quite well with having this scary creature, but you can see Marius in him. We were definitely ambitious in terms of what we wanted to do with the amount of Lycans and the kind of visual effects we were looking for.
In Underworld 3, there's this sequence where there must be 100 Lycans that are charging across a plateau toward the fortress. But we see them sort of transform one at a time or 2 or 3 at a time. Here we have shots where there are 100 Lycans on screen going from human to creature. So the scale of the shot was much greater than we had ever done. So we used a piece of software called Agisoft. This is a way of taking a series of photographs on a turntable, and then this software sort of assembles it into a 3D representation of the actor. And that gave us enough information to have the geometry to do a transformation, you know, more or less accurately.
In this film, we've actually gone practical most of the way, which is exactly how we did the first Underworld. The trick is moving between the 2 worlds as much as possible.
Andres, who was the production designer, created a world for us that was really quite extraordinary.
Anna, from the beginning, had a very focused point of view about each set, and she was really focused on the story.
We pretty quickly figured out that we were on the same page, that we wanted to make a statement by going back to the roots of Underworld and go back into this Gothic world.
In the very first movie we shot in Budapest, and it was kind of steampunk looking, and then we ended up at one point in Vancouver, and it was much more modern. And now this movie has got kind of quite a medieval vibe to it.
The exterior of the vampire mansion, it's a castle about a 2-hour drive south of Prague called Luboka. Just being there, this crazy huge castle, shooting your movie is a real charge.
Luboka. It's actually Gothic castle, but it was rebuilt completely in 19th century. So actually, everything there works quite well for us in the style of the new Gothic. What was important for us was a combination between the old-fashioned details and the history of that place together with the modern technology. 60 seconds.
If the Eastern Coven is dark and structured in its architecture and in its clothing, we want it to be the opposite true for the Northern Coven. So there's a much more organic approach to the sets.
Nordic Coven is something more like a monastery, which is very spare and very simple. They went back to the roots and they went back to the very basic life. So it's stones, metal, everything is just functional. The work with the ice and with the frozen lake was very tricky because you are working with resin, which is not easy material to work with. You are looking for really clear materials. And the tricky thing is that you can do like one single mistake and everything is going into the yellow color. Moving ice and water and ice, that was kind of challenging because you couldn't be totally sure that you know how to make it precisely. And there's a little bit of alchemy in that. I never did in such a big scale. And we realized it's a tricky job because you never know what could happen with that material. I worked twice before with Vojana. Sometimes it was tricky because we had black and white costumes on black and white sets, but I think it does work at the end.
Of course, I saw the previous movies, and already there you could see that costume and set design, everything looks really, really good. So it was challenging from the beginning, but I never thought that we are going to make so many new costumes. And we made more than 80%.
We have medieval ice-based armor. We have opulent, decadent vampire ball gowns and everything in between. So we were extremely happy with Bojana's work on this movie. She nailed it.
In the previous movies, sometimes they were using other colors like dark gray, metallic olive, burgundy. We tried to do it all black. So I think showing a lot of skin and using all different textures made this black vampires interesting kind of.
Everything has a bit of haute couture in it, but there is a modern edge to it as well. And that was just real fun. And then creating those really elaborate and sexy outfits for Samira was great too.
Marius is out there, reeking of canine insolence, plotting our downfall.
In the script, she is standing naked in front of a mirror. And while I was reading, I said, I don't think she will ever be really naked. So her robe is leather, and we did these laser cuts. So she's totally exposed, but you don't see anything.
I have such a wonderful mix of materials like leather, fur, lace, and a really fun outfit is the Winter Garden party scene. It's this kind of wonderful avant-garde type dress that's just larger than life.
3, 2, 1, go.
It was very important for us to keep the iconic silhouette of Celine the same. But it's a little bit more modern, contemporary.
It's such an iconic look and such a great look that they established in the very first Underworld. So we made like little changes in the corset. We made it less elaborate, but I mean, the whole look we didn't change.
I was quite nervous how it's going to be to see her, you know, in the real flesh in front of me in a fitting. But it was a real moment because I looked at her and there was Celine. And it was like, okay, this is real. We're making this movie.
You know, it's a fairly comfortable outfit, to be honest. I mean, it's not something I would want to necessarily wear grocery shopping, but I'm pretty used to it.
We even tried to change the boots, but it doesn't work. Even Kate said, you know what, we tried on the first Underworld, we made like a 50 pair of boots and it didn't work. We found this one. Believe me, that's the one.
That concept of Celine having a more Nordic look towards the end of the movie was something I've been discussing with Kate. And I know she was very intrigued about that. And then we actually ended up having fun with it too. When Marius tries to hold on to her and all he has is the coat.
Does the great death dealer truly come in peace?
I do.
White and beige and gray and using a lot of fur. That was the base for Nordic vampires. Also there we used a lot of skin. Everything is covered with ice and snow, but they don't suffer of cold because they're vampires, so we could play with that. A lot of fur, but still bare arms, barefoot.
We're used to seeing these vampires in all black, but adding the creams and the whites which sort of go with the Nordic. I just think it's amazing, and it's pretty kick-ass, but still being a bit feminine at the same time.
When we started creating the Northern Coven and its look and the people within, we felt it's important to somehow show that a few of them have reached a level of spirituality where they can travel between those two worlds.
My eyes see beyond the surface of so many things.
It's almost like a traditional thing that if somebody is able to do a journey, that gets marked as a tattoo. The body of a vampire is known to be unmarked. So I thought it was kind of an interesting thought to have a vampire choosing to actually mark the body.
Actually, my wife found them kind of attractive, and they stick like glue, so I can keep them for a year maybe before they wear off. Make her happy.
I was actually quite aware about the challenges we had dealing with the scope of what we intended to do. But it was a great experience and really fun.
How many franchises make it to 5? You probably count on your 2 hands the number of franchises that have gotten that far, so there has to be something we're doing right here.
We've had great fortune making the Underworld films. We've traveled the world with Kate Beckinsale and Celine, and we've had so much fun making these movies.